Alright, hello. This is a lecture for my students concerning the string API. So just real quick, the API is a list and with descriptions of all variables and methods of a class. For instance, this one here is for string. I think it's important that you get some of these string methods down, and I think having some kind of tool to help you review pretty often would be useful for this. Alright, so just to start off, one of the things we don't really talk about in AP Computer Science A is that strings are technically just character arrays. I hope you can remember that characters are letters, numbers, and symbols, and that a string is, of course, just a bunch of those in a row, or however many in a row. So we say technically that a string is really just an array of characters. This ABC would be ABC here. We don't really look at that because character is not one of the necessary data types for you to know for the AP exam, oddly enough. It's one of the most basic ones I ever learned, but it is not in there, so we don't really focus on it. So that's just a little thing. So let's take a look at some of these methods. So again, this is the API for the string class in Java, and it has a bunch of methods. So let's get started with one. This is the charAt method. It returns the character at a certain index. It returns a character, as we say. That's why it says modifier and type here. It's to tell you if it's what kind of return type it is. Most of them are in a type that you're familiar with, whether that be integer, string, boolean, or void. Meanwhile, some others are perhaps a little unusual, and we won't really go into those. I'll just be the ones that I think you need for my class. So let's go and get started. I have a program right here, just named example. I'll save it here into our cat search lab folder, which is a very fun lab. I made sure it was going to be a lot of fun. So let's make a string, call it str, and I'm just going to declare it there. Declare our test string. I like to always capitalize it since it is a capital letter, because it's not a primitive data type. That's different from languages like C++ that keep it lowercase. So let's go and initialize our test string. So let's set str equal to, and I'm just going to go and take their example from there and use the alphabet. G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, and you know the rest. We're not going to worry about writing the rest. Alright, so for right now, that's simple enough. Files, it's fine. Let's go ahead and use some of these methods. So for instance, our charAt method. We can use that just like this, and then give it an index 0 through whatever number that is. And let's just say 3, so that's 3 right here for D. So that right there would do a D. Now, hopefully, you know that nothing will show up. If you don't, please listen to this. Nothing shows up because all it does is return a character right there. It's almost like just putting the letter D right there, or like that. It doesn't do anything. That's not accomplishing anything. We have to actually do something with it. So for instance, if we were to be simply, the most simple thing would probably be just to print it out. And that would print out that D. Other things we could do is perhaps a sequential search. Just take it through like this, and something like this. Now I is less than str.length plus I. Please remember that length does not have parentheses. Wait. I'll be honest. Okay. Length does have parentheses. That's my mistake. Sorry about that. Alright, so length does have parentheses. Arrays do not have parentheses for length. Array list does have parentheses for size. So please keep that in mind. Strings have parentheses in their length. Okay. This is just basically a sequential search. Let's just say for whatever letter. So if that one is D, out.print. So this code right here kind of does the opposite of this one. This code just tells us what's at that index, which is a D. This one, however, will print out a D if it finds it. Well, it'll print out the index of D. It kind of goes the opposite way. Notice it goes from 0, number loops iterate, this for loop iterates. It goes from I equals 0 all the way until the length of the string, adding 1 each time. And if the character at that index is a D, then it prints out that index, and it should print out 3, like it does. So those are just some uses of charAt. I'll keep the more complex example, I guess, just because it's cooler. So that's charAt. We'll skip a few of these, and let's take a look at compareTo. You'll actually need this one in your lab. So let's take a look at this one, because there are some very special things to do regarding checking two things lexicographically and returning an integer. Because it's not just returning true or false for whether or not it's the same. It's testing it to see if they are how far apart they are by ASCII value. So for instance, if we were to take the string hello and compare it to the string goodbye, you'll notice that this one here, it's telling us that H and G are one letter apart. Now, what if we were to switch it around? Well, in that case, we would actually get -1, as you'll see. The way it works is it's basically this letter minus that letter. Which, if we remember from our ASCII table, notice that G is a 67, H is a 60. Oh wait, sorry. G is 103 in decimal, and H is 104 in decimal. So that means 103 minus 104, which equals -1. Right? And that's how you can use this one. I'm going to have you use that in your cat searcher lab to run a binary search on a sorted alphabetical list. And that's kind of the special part about it, is that you can search through an alphabetical list much easier because you're able to use this compareTo method. So I want you to pay special attention to that one. And notice that, it says Unicode values. Unicode is just another system. It's not ASCII, technically. We're just not going to worry about that because it's still the same distance apart. Now, of course, if the two strings are equal, then we're going to get a 0 because H and H and E and E and L and L and L and L and O and O are all the same. This is because they're all the same. Meanwhile, when it was goodbye and hello, it compares the first letter that's different and sees how different they are. So if these have both been, if these are both H's, for instance, then we would get a very different number. We get the difference between, instead of G and H, we get the difference between O and E, that you'll see right here. It's 10 letters apart. So it compares the first different letter, or if there are no different letters, it's just a 0. It ignores the rest of the word. So that is our compareTo method. Our next method to check out would be the compared to, well, we won't really look at one. We'll look at the contains. So the contains is basically just a regular sequential search. Goes through all the letters in it. It's basically like doing this one up here, but a little differently. Good, for instance, dot contains. If we want to see if the two letters O, two O's in a row are in there, we would get a value of true because it does return a Boolean variable. But if we were to add another O in there, it'd return false because there are no three O's in a row in here. So that makes life a little easier to search through strings. But the reason why I want you to understand this one as well is not only because it is on the AP exam, but also because it has a lot more utility, being as how it returns numbers that tell you the difference between the strings, rather than just telling you if it's in there or not. Which, you know, clearly has use, just not as much use as the other. Alright, so our next method we're going to take a look at is called the concatenate method, or just concat, but it stands for concatenate, which is basically adding strings together. So you notice how it returns a type of string. Oops. Notice how it returns a string. It does not change the original string, but it returns a new one. So if we were to just do str.concat and give it the rest of the alphabet, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z, then it won't actually print anything. What we have to do, it won't print anything, but also it won't change anything. Like, watch this. I'm going to put in this testing and actually test it and show you that it does not change anything. It's still just up from A to P like it was up here. The other half of the alphabet, or basically roughly half, is not there yet. So what we have to do is, remember how it returns a string? Well, for that, we have to actually change our original string by getting this new value of the full alphabet and putting it into our old one. So concat doesn't change it, but it can be used to change it. And we can observe that by putting a print line before and after the concatenation line. And then notice that it has this new part on it. So that's concatenation. It's a useful thing to know because it's nice to have an easy way of putting two strings together. Alright, so indexOf is a really good one. So I'm just going to go ahead and start from the start of printing something out, because again, we're not really doing anything with these values, we're just showing them off, and the best way to show is with printing. So if I were to say str.indexOf, we would give it a string, which would be whatever thing we're searching for. Probably just put in like some letters from the alphabet. And it'll return the index of the first occurrence of that string. So for instance, TUV will return us 19 because that is where the T begins here. We can count all these up, or you can remember that there are 26 letters in the alphabet, and so Z would be at index 25, Y at 24, X at 23, at 22, V at 21, U at 20, and then T at 19. So notice, it does the first letter only, the first letter of it. Do UV and we get to 20. If it's not present at all in there, for instance, pretending that our alphabet began with QWERTY, would be false because we would see that no, there is no index up there. Now, why do they use -1? -1 is used because there's no possibility to have a -1 index. So they take advantage of that and say, hey, you're going to know that if it's -1, it's just not in there. So one nice way of using that is if you want to know about a certain string. So let's say we have a problem here where we get some kind of input from the user. And of course we need a scanner for that. Scanner system.in. So if we had that, then we got user input. And next. Okay, that would get the next thing from the user. Maybe we're asking them, hey, welcome to our shop. What would you like? And all right, so we get this input from the user, and what we want to do with it is check and see if they said nothing. There are a few ways of doing that. The one I'm going to show you is just simply with the index of. So index of nothing. If it's equal to -1, meaning it doesn't show up at all, we want to say, here you are, exclamation mark, because we're happy. And if it is equal to if it is not equal to -1, meaning it does show up, we'll just say goodbye. Goodbye because, well, they're not buying anything. There's no reason for them really to be there anymore. So we just say nothing. We'll say goodbye. But if I were to say I want soap, it'll be like, here you are. Now, here's the nice thing about this. If I were to say I want nothing, it's then, well, take a guess. Which one is it going to be? What is the index of nothing in this string? Alright, so the index of nothing is, of course, not -1. So we say goodbye. That's it. So that's index of. Hopefully you can see the utility of. Alright, so that's the index of method. And you notice there are other similar methods with it. There's an index of where it's only going to check after a certain index. So I want you to really be paying close attention to substring. It's really, really useful for you. And well, here it is. So substring. Take notes. Please. All right. So substring gets a part of the string. Now, like concatenation, it doesn't actually change it. You'll notice that substring returns a new string. It does not remove. It does not actually change the original one. So if I were to say substring from 4, which means from the beginning index of 4, so it's going to clear out the first. It would technically go all the way up here to 4, index 4, and then you just get the rest of it. But you'll notice that it doesn't actually change it at all. If we just, I'm going to take this out. Alright, so you'll notice it doesn't actually change it. It's still the same string. It's our last line here we're focusing on. So it doesn't actually change anything. And so, just like the concatenate, to change the string, you have to do str equals first. And just like last time, we'll test it out by showing both of them. And we'll show that it skips over the 0th index, the 1st index, the 3rd index. The 3rd index right here, or index 3, and then goes from index 4 onwards. It gets the substring, gets the part of the string, just the part of it that goes from 4 to the end. So notice it still kept us E here. We didn't need a second number. Now, we can have a second number. For instance, if we were to put the second number in here, it would get everything that's inside that little range of 4 to 10. It would only get a part of it. So it would go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 10. And it would just grab that little range. So notice how it's basically like the opposite of concatenation. Concatenation, we add more onto it. Substring, we take it away. Now this is very useful because it allows you to change around string functions, string methods, sorry. And that did show up a lot on the free response questions last year. And in general, it's a useful thing. So again, you can check that out on the API. If you're looking at the Java API for string, I definitely recommend looking at the length and the charAt and the compareTo and contains and concatenates and indexOf and substring, because those are extremely useful things to know, especially for this class. All right. Now the last thing I'd like to do is the trim method. So trim basically just gets rid of any spaces that are at the beginning or end. So let's just reset our string here, and we're going to make it be the quick round fox jumps over the lazy dog. Basic typing exercise. Yes. So we go ahead and we're going to go ahead and do that trim. Now this will not change the string. Okay? Remember, if we do that trim, we try to print it out, it will look exactly the same for a few reasons. One reason is the exact same reason as the last one. It returns it. It doesn't actually change str. We have to actually set str equal to itself. Please remember to do that for substring, trim, and concatenate. Or if you had another string that was going to be new str, that would work too. Now, the other, and I did that just to show you that you can make another string there. Now, it also will not change anything because there's no white space at the beginning or end. Now, what is white space? Look at the fact that all this background here is white. Now watch what happens when I press the space bar. We get all this space. I hope I'm not going too fast for you. So it puts in all this white space. Notice, because it's white. That's the background. So if we were to print out that string before changing it, you'll notice that it will come out with all this space in it. That's not anywhere else. But after we trim it, it gets rid of all the space in the beginning and the end. That's just something fun for you. Well, I mean, okay. Yeah, please do know trim. It's just nice to have. If you come from a C++ background like I do, it's shocking that it's not in C++. And you're like, wow, Java's so nice. You'd be grateful. So anyway, that's basically all the methods here. I really want you to have down. Hopefully that helped you get those. That doesn't mean that you can't ask me questions in class, but I will be asking for copies of your notes if you ask me questions. And if you don't have those notes, you will write it down because you need to have this information. It should be accessible to you. Let me just tell you something honestly. As a programmer, string methods were one of my least favorite things because they didn't rely on exactly on the cleverness that a lot of other algorithms did, and all that. They relied on just remembering really all these little details. Particularly a nuisance to me was the Oh, no. Oh, compareTo. The compareTo method was particularly one that was frustrating to me, just because it was really hard to remember how it compared letters. Hopefully, though, you will remember that it minuses from left to right and returns the difference. So in this case, O was far ahead of E, and so it returned a 10. Okay, I think that's everything. Remember to take good notes, study hard, and make good decisions. Goodbye now. All right. The last thing I'd like to do is the trim method. So trim basically just gets rid of any spaces that are at the beginning or end. So let's just reset our string here, and we're going to make it be the quick round fox jumps over the lazy dog. Basic typing exercise. Yes. So we go ahead and we're going to go ahead and do that trim. Now this will not change the string. Okay. Remember, if we do that trim, we try to print it out, it will look exactly the same for a few reasons. One reason is the exact same reason as the last one. It returns it. It doesn't actually change str. We have to actually set str equal to itself. Please remember to do that for substring, trim, and concatenate. Or if you had another string that was going to be new str, that would work too. Now, the other, and I did that just to show you that you can make another string there. Now, it also will not change anything because there's no white space at the beginning or end. Now, what is white space? Look at the fact that all this background here is white. Now watch what happens when I press the space bar. We get all this space. I hope I'm not going too fast for you. So it puts in all this white space. Notice, because it's white. That's the background. So if we were to print out that string before changing it, you'll notice that it will come out with all this space in it. That's not anywhere else. But after we trim it, it gets rid of all the space at the beginning and the end. That's just something fun for you. Well, I mean, yeah, please do know trim. It's just nice to have. If you come from a C++ background like I do, it's shocking that it's not in C++. And you're like, wow, Java's so nice. You be grateful. So anyway, that's basically all the methods here. I really want you to have down. Hopefully that helped you get those. That doesn't mean that you can't ask me questions in class, but I will be asking for copies of your notes if you ask me questions. And if you don't have those notes, you will write it down because you need to have this information. It should be accessible to you. Let me just tell you something honestly. As a programmer, string methods were one of my least favorite things because they didn't rely on exactly on the cleverness that a lot of other algorithms did, and all that. They relied on just remembering really all these little details. Particularly a nuisance to me was compareTo. The compareTo method was particularly one that was frustrating to me, just because it was really hard to remember how it compared letters. Hopefully, though, you will remember that it minuses from left to right and returns the difference. So in this case, O was far ahead of E, and so it returned a 10. Okay, I think that's everything. Remember to take good notes, study hard, and make good decisions. Goodbye now.